everybody, welcome back live at Drew's house, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Hope you are doing well. Happy fall to you from our Newburyport studios. We turn our attention here down the street a little bit. Newburyport High School, no students today. A new member of the school in a new position at the school. Somebody I've never had. First time on the show for Jim Antonelli. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Drew. Thanks for having me here this afternoon.
All right, thanks for coming in. Dean of Students.
Yeah.
I don't recall that position when I was in high school. I was at Danvers High, but I don't. Is that a new spot at Newburyport, or what's the deal here?
It is a new position at the high school. It's Dean of Students and Specialized Programs.
Okay.
I will manage grade 9 and grade 12, and then our associate principal, Mr. Testa, who's been there for quite a period of time now, about 15 years. He will handle the sophomores and the seniors.
Okay.
Yeah. So I oversee day-to-day operations with Mr. Testa, and create relationships with kids, get into classrooms and different activities, sporting events and such. And
you got to talk with the kids? No, just kidding.
That's the best part of the day.
I know it is. I'm just kidding with it. I will say, I always tell Kyle Hodgson this all the time, who I know you're friends with over there at Newburyport. I always tell him, I don't know if you just pick the best of the best, but I've never had a bad experience with the Newburyport kids coming over here after many years of doing this show, too.
Nice.
And, the percentages are pretty high that you're bound to get somebody who kind of annoys you. And no, they've been great every time.
Sure.
So, I don't know. I guess it's probably a good thing to instill that you're representing the school when you go out into the public and onto the radio shows, too, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's cool. So what's the background a little bit? I've never met you before, so what's the where you come from? And
So I grew up in Westford, Mass, and attended Westford Academy, which is the public high school in Westford.
Good hockey out there, right?
Good hockey, good sports, good academics, great institution. It's the 7th oldest high school in the country.
Oh.
Yeah, 1792 was established, so it's got some great history.
Yeah.
It's still got a group of trustees that oversee an endowment, and that's about $4 million endowment. I was blessed to work my way up as a coach, as a teacher, dean of students, assistant principal, and then principal for the last 16 years.
Wow.
And one of the things I wanted to get up to this area, Drew, to basically finish up my career. And Newburyport's it's a great place to be. And I have to say, I've gone around and met people at the Senior Center, Graff Arena, the Hope Church. People have just been amazing in all the schools.
Yeah.
Kind and nice and supportive. So I feel like I've made the right move.
Yeah.
16 years as principal is a long time, and it was time for me to make a change, and I'm excited about the change.
Did you actually move? Did you move?
Yeah, I actually live on Plum Island right now.
Wow, look at that.
I'm a
All
Plum
right.
Islander.
A lot of our music friends are coming here. Frequent Plum Island quite a bit. I actually should have mentioned this. I felt sorry. The Plum Fest got canceled a couple of weekends ago there with all that rain that moved through. So next year, I know they're a little devastated about that, but it must be a fun place to live.
It is. It is. I got to be honest. So we were supposed to have somebody on Saturday for Plum Fest, but we were worried about the
you were going to be a host.
We were going to be a host.
Oh, okay.
And I just was worried about the wind and rain coming in. And I purchased a place back in 2008. In all those years, I was never able to go see Plum Fest.
Oh, wow.
And I had something to do at school.
Yeah.
So this one year, I'm psyched to do this one event, and the weather comes in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a dud.
Although with the surf there, you just can't take a chance.
Can't take a chance. Yeah.
What's it like living there in general? Because those storms, I was in Danvers on that day. That was Hurricane Lee that was churning off and I know some people were joking that wasn't much of a storm at all. And in Danvers, it wasn't much of a storm. But I do know Plum Island can be a little different. What is it like riding out some of those storms on Plum Island?
It can be a little bit scary. My house was built. It's actually an image on one of the rafters that says May 26th, May 18th, 1926.
Oh wow!
Written on the wall, and it says "not bad." So they finished it right around that time, and it's a nice home, and it's a little shaky in some of the high weather wind storms, but hey, it's almost 100 years old.
It actually says "not bad."
Yeah.
Like built it not bad.
Yeah.
That's somebody with a sense of humor.
Yeah, it's somebody with a sense of humor.
That's fantastic.
Before I covered up with some sheetrock.
Okay. Have you ever had to leave during a storm?
No. No. A couple years ago we had some real weather where it was actually funny because my wife was going to leave the island, and the police said, you can't come off at this time. And so she
stopped you from leaving.
Yeah, stopped us from leaving. But we went
bridge.
back. She went back to the beachcomber with the kids, and she opened the door, and the place was packed, and everybody was having fun. And that's how we rode out the storm. So it was great.
Does not surprise me one bit. That is a typical Plum Island
Love the
story.
beachcomber. Great people.
There's a bunch of good places. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a very fun spot to be, especially if you like live music too, because they do a good job with that. I know a lot of our guys appreciate Plum Island. But anyway, back to the schooling thing. So what's the day-to-day operation? So you wake up in the morning, you say we're going to tackle. What would you do today? What's the
Well, first and foremost, I love greeting the students when they come in the morning, Drew.
Okay.
Just greet them with a smile.
Every day?
Every single day.
Yeah.
Andy Wolf, the principal's out there, Mike Tester and I, we greet the students. The buses come in. It's only 4 buses, but the parents drop off in the morning. So, you want students to see somebody, greeting them with a smile.
I don't know if I ever had that.
It's a nice thing.
Did you have that when you were? I don't think.
No, but it was one of the things that I learned from a mentor principal of mine, Drew, at Westford Academy, and I kept it up. And now my predecessor is doing the same thing.
Interesting. Yeah, that seems kind of. I mean, it's been a little while since I've been in the high school corridors, but that's definitely not something I remember showing up to school. Yeah. Granted, I was late a lot, but no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Not kidding. And sometimes I would.
Excuse me, my successor, not my predecessor taught me it. My successor's doing the same thing.
Oh, good catch.
He's out there every single morning with me when he was the assistant dean of students as well last year, and now he was able to take the position over. So as my successor, and he does the same thing.
So that's great. A way to connect with them and probably makes them feel more comfortable to talk about stuff if they need to, right? I'm guessing that's probably one of the objectives. What else are you trying to accomplish with that?
A sense of belonging with students. You want them to feel like when they come to Newburyport High School that they feel like they belong. And that's it's a critical role today. COVID did so much damage, right? And isolated so many students. Talking to some of your folks that work for you here, and where they got hit in regards to, 2017, 18, being able to do a couple of years and then all of a sudden, having to shift. We use the words swivel and pivot. That's what we did in Westford to adapt, because everything you did, you had to draw up in the sand. It was like sandlot football as you're drawing up things. There's no manual, Drew, when you're a principal trying to figure out how to handle a pandemic. Yeah,
nobody's, I think, even from governors to nobody's pitching a perfect game in that stuff either. It's you make mistakes and
and roll, and roll with it,
and try to figure out how the best way to get through. It is funny. Not funny, but I don't know if we think about that enough. Like I was at I was going into work the whole time, and my life obviously was changed like everybody else's, but I really think sometimes we do forget. Like we say, it's so easy to say, kids, they're young, they'll get through it, they'll figure it out, they'll be fine. Kids, they're young. But that is such a developmental age that it is. I actually think about those kids a lot, like even like the seniors who lost out on proms and graduations and sports final years. Those are big moments for me. I still hang out with people that I was senior year sports teams that best friends. I would have hated missing that. And sometimes we're easy to dismiss that, I think.
Yeah. I got to say that the students were really resilient, and a lot of the students, some students have certainly struggled social, emotionally, but I think students did a great job working their way through it, and I think they're finding ways to get back into the classroom, make connections, and they lost some of that along the way, some of the behaviors, things and so forth, but I just have such faith in our students today that they're going to come back, and they're already in the swing of things now. It's almost like it didn't happen, but it did happen, and people can't forget, because it really, you have to think about the homes and the people who had to do makeshift offices and people just in isolation. It was a lot.
Oh, Zoom. I mean, if I never have to do another Zoom interview.
Seriously, Zoom and Google Meets. I mean, if I hear those words again, my doctor says he wants a Zoom with me. I go, no, I want a face-to-face.
Yeah, exactly, right? I know. It's like we did this show out of my kitchen for 2 years,
Yeah.
Zoom shows from my kitchen, and that was, I'm not sure I've opened up a Zoom since, I'm sure.
I'm not sure I can blame you, Drew.
I'm sure they're still doing great, but I mean, it's just, I can't tell you how it was just fulfilling to be back in here. And we do try to do music shows on Zoom, and it's like, oh my God, it's just not the same. But
so getting back to what I do, so I start off greeting the kids in the morning, and then I'll come in, and it might be a quick meeting with the principal, we'll set the day's agenda. Then I get around the building, go into some classrooms. Today I was in a couple of Spanish classrooms. I don't speak Spanish, but it was good good to see the students in action.
I was going to ask.
Head down to the, maybe the PE area and watch some of the kids doing some outside activities. Today they were doing some soccer. The other day doing kickball soccer and things like that. I was doing some school safety things today. I was over at the Bresnahan School meeting with the principal. So I've got a variety of things that I can do on a daily basis. We have a school resource officer who's great. Kyle McElroy is our SRO. Met with him about, just operations at the football game the other night. We had a small issue we wanted to talk through, and just making sure we cover on all bases, So, dismissal, it's nice. Newburyport changed to a real sweet spot when it comes to timing of the start and finish of school. So, in my opinion, doing the brain research and all the stuff that I've done in education, 8:15 to 2:45 is perfect time based on sports, getting kids to sleep a little bit later. I got to be honest, I'm jealous. It took me a long time to try and move things in Westford, and I wasn't able to make that change.
What time did you start in Westford?
7:35.
Earlier.
Yeah, the bell goes off, and the kids are done at 5:02. So
you would find like sluggishness early?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I remember reading all those studies. If you could give kids, and then of course the argument that people make to that, right, is that kids are just going to stay up later if they have it on the other side. But there's something about. I don't think the studies show that. I do think they show.
There's actually data. I worked with Stanford University, a program called Challenge Success, and I asked that question to him, Drew. I said because I was pushing him, I'm like, all right, so if we move this to 8:15, because I was a little bit hesitant at first. They said, Jim, all the data shows the kids will not stay up later, and this is Stanford University. So I'm saying they've done their research, they have their data, and they just basically said that the kids, that the rhythms that they get into based on their growth and their brain development, it's the sweet spot for you, and they're not going to stay up later. And our kids, I think, are doing a great job at Newburyport High School right now. Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, it is tricky around here too, because you start talking about daylight for sports, and it's New England. You start going into wintertime here, and once you duck into wintertime, it's getting dark at, I don't know how early we go, but I just cringed thinking about that.
4:30, right? 4:30, 4:45,
As we now sit here in fall. Where'd my summertime go, by the way? Felt like a lot of rain, didn't it? But I mean, the sports is such in buses, it gets tricky with all that scheduling. But how is the bus situation, by the way? I know that's been like an issue the last couple of years, bus shortages. Are we doing okay getting kids to and from games?
I think Kyle Hudson runs into a couple, situations at times. You get somebody gets sick or whatever. Right now we have 4 buses running in the morning to bring students to school, with a lot of parent drop-off and a lot of parking around the school.
That's all Newburyport needs is four high school buses?
Yeah. There's no parking on campus except for the teachers.
Oh, yeah, so kids can't drive to school.
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
that's a big difference from
park all around. Toppins Lane and different areas around the school.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. I gotcha. So they park on the street, and there is a lot of street parking there, so that's fine. Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I remember Danvers High had a massive parking lot, which I guess we maybe took for granted because students could there was a student overflow parking lot that we used to park in, so that was kind of nice. When I had my 85 Oldsmobile, which was
a classic, Drew, a classic. Love the Olds.
I got that thing. I remember my grandfather found it for me. May he rest in peace. But this woman had passed away at his condo, and she had only driven it to church and back. It was like an 85 Olds bought in 2004 with 30,000 miles on it. Bizarre. But the reason why the car ended up dying was because it had sat out all the New England winters.
Oh yeah.
And the salt underneath. It was like the was it the Flintstones where they could eventually pound through the thing and feet could be touching. I was like, that's a dangerous car now. But yeah, that was my first car, the 85 Oldsmobile. But I don't know. The one thing going back to COVID, I was thinking about when you were talking about the resiliency we had a lot of those seniors in because that was either on Zoom or afterwards when they finally were able to come back. But a lot of those upperclassmen came in, and I found especially the sports programs. I mean, I think in all aspects of life, but especially those sports teams, kids were just devastated that they would have to go out and not be able to practice, not be able to play. If they could play, there were rule changes and you're wearing masks, and it was just tough times. And I think the senior leadership that I saw was pretty incredible. A few times some of these kids would say to me we obviously know it's terrible. This is so unlucky for us, but there's things to learn from it. It'll probably make us stronger. The amount of people that said something similar to that, I was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I couldn't believe the last 4 classes that I had worked with, and now the resiliency of this group coming in as a new person, and it's just amazing. And I just think that word just keeps coming to my head. How courageous they were, how they battled through, and how they didn't point fingers at people. They didn't blame. They knew this wasn't something that they had created. And so they found support for one another, and they did things. They met in parking lots together, right?
Yeah.
I can still remember seeing some of the kids at my former school in parking lots, 4 different cars, different areas,
Yep.
just chewing the fat, out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Post-practice, and they would do, they couldn't do the spaghetti dinners that they used to do, some of those things, so they found different ways,
Yeah.
They'd go grab a sandwich and they'd find a place, throw a couple of blankets out in the backfield and do whatever they could to survive.
And the weird thing about COVID is too, like, so much of COVID was, you want to protect the elderly. Maybe you're a kid and it's okay, you can get through this, but you might get somebody else sick. And these kids are going, well, why can't I hang out with Steve?
Right.
So that's like a tough thing for
I'm
teenage.
165 pounds, lean, mean, fighting machine.
Right. I've never been sick in my life.
Right. But
it's tough it's just to process that. It's hard.
And the parents are saying, well, because your grandma and grandpa live here, right?
Yeah.
Or we're taking care of your grandma and grandpa right now, and we can't have that. And that's when it really hampered the kids in those scenarios. But I think the student athletes did a great job, just supporting each other. And I know at my former school, I watched it, and they just hung together as much as possible.
Yeah.
We did as many makeshift things as possible.
Is there, besides like you mentioned, it's just kind of a different world, and it's nice to meet the kids, and it's kind of this post-COVID, everybody being together it's a good feeling. I get that. What do you think? Is there actual things that teachers, any officials have learned as far as learning from COVID, and I don't know if Zoom taught us this or whatever, maybe stuff that was taken for granted, or just stuff on the back end now that we've come out of this? Is there something that jumps out to you like this is real difference? This is something has changed here after all these years, decades in education. There's a real difference coming out of COVID that I notice on a day-to-day basis. Is there anything like that for you?
I just think, Drew, the use of technology is just incredible. We were able to utilize our Chromebooks to teach remotely. We divided classes in half.
Yeah.
We had some students coming in the building, some students staying at home.
Yeah.
So the technology, I think, even though we don't want to use the word Zoom and Google Meet anymore, the two of us, right, and many other folks, it provided us with the capability to keep kids moving forward.
Yeah.
Was it ideal? No. Are there learning gaps? Absolutely. But the students will bounce back. I have all the faith in the world based on our education system. But it was the hardest time in our American education system.
Yeah.
We've never had to deal with that. And so schools that weren't set up with the technology, they struggled.
I've often thought, too, maybe we haven't even seen the dust settle from that, too, because I think maybe a lot of these kids, it's for some, even for me, 3 years of COVID, it's kind of like a blur.
Yeah.
It's kind of, was that COVID or was that pre-COVID? I can't remember exactly. kind of time is weird, And it's like, I wonder if, some of these kids will kind of look back and just, like I said, I hope people will take that and run with positive things that they learned and how to, get through, and maybe it makes it tougher. But there probably are nationwide some gaps that you see, like you mentioned, you probably see some gaps just, I don't know if it's test scores or whatever, but.
MCAS took a hit across, and
did it?
Those conversations are taking place right now at the state level with the commission to see whether or not, the union doesn't want to support MCAS anymore. They want to give more flexibility in the classroom to the teachers. But, there are certain standards that need to be upheld, and the standards did a lot to move Massachusetts forward, and that's why we're one of the best education, areas in the country. Is
it a clear, very clear, just drop off during COVID that test scores went down?
Well, what happened was you have needs improvement, and then you have, you got meets expectations, exceeds expectations. And so students you want your students to be moving the bar to exceeds expectations.
Yeah.
Probably what happened in most schools was the bar shifted, right? So teachers were having kids move into the exceed expectations, and the bars probably went the other way.
Gotcha.
So more students are still meeting expectations, but the state wants students exceeding expectations.
Yes.
So you might have 96% of your kids meeting or exceeding, but less kids are exceeding at this point. And that will pick up.
Gotcha. All right. Very good. Jim Antonelli joining us here live at Drew's House, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Hope you're all doing well. Again, thank you to our team, Maeve Power, Sarah Hayden, and the rest of the crew that is here. We actually, the crew kind of got bigger since we started here, so I'm not exactly sure who's here today. Ryan Rothberg, I think I saw it. Thank you. But thank you guys, as always, for doing a great job. You have done a lot of work with the MIAA as well. Is that it's fair to say? So I do remember the MIAA from my days. It seemed like, is it fair to say, it seemed like there was always something on their plate. It's very tough running a sports enterprise like that in a state like this. fair to say there was always something?
Yeah, you're dealing with student athletes, and sport is very emotional, as you know.
Yeah.
And so, you could be dealing with, a student that makes a bad decision, and it gets up to the MIAA level, and courts can get involved with court injunctions, a particular player that's not allowed to play based on a specific, rule violation and such.
Yep.
You've always got, your chemical health wellness violations that come into place. You've got eligibility things that happen. Sometimes you might have a student athlete that moves in, Drew, to a community, and if the background check isn't done appropriately, and the student might have used all their eligibility. So I was involved in a hearing with that at the MIA, in which, we had a student athlete who participated in the championship game that was ineligible. And you look at 17 kids in the face and say, your record is not 17-0. You're not going to the state championship.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So, but I think the MIA does a great job. I always say that the MIA is about us.
Yeah.
Because it's built upon, teachers, administrators, coaches who act in positions in different committees. I served as a tournament management committee person. I've served as district chair. I was on the board of directors for a number of years. People work hard. They give up a lot of their time to do that work. And in any organization, you're going to have things that work great, and people are going to question things all the time. But I've always had great relationships with the MIAA.
Those are tough decisions being made too. I mean, I happen to live in a part of the state where Danvers High School is coming off a massive hockey scandal, hazing. Town over from me is Bishop Fenwick, which I believe is banned from postseason this year because of what you just said. A player that I think was background checks or ineligibility, or I forget exactly what it was. But my general point here is, I mean, those people on the MIAA boards, they don't have personal vendettas. They're just trying to protect the integrity. And I think sometimes it's tough for students and parents to accept the fact that they're not out to get you. They've just seen a wrongdoing here, and they're trying to keep that standard up for across the board. And I think sometimes, like you said, it's emotions play a role, and you work hard. And no MIAA person wants to tell 17 kids on a team that the 18th kid is going to force the ruining of your season.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I thank you for saying that, because that's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
What do you make of, I mean, even today, like there's another story today. King Philip has another hazing situation. King Philip, what town are they again? Rentham. That's a South Shore school. But it seems like the hazing thing just continues to pop up all across. Luckily, I haven't seen too many stories out of Newburyport here where you are currently. But, I mean, it is somebody, I look at this stuff all the time, and its stories just pop up all the time from schools in Massachusetts and all across the country. What would you tell a kid when it comes to, maybe we're talking to those senior leaders again, and there's traditions, like I remember traditions. I remember stuff looking back at sports teams, and maybe that was a little borderline. Like, we probably shouldn't have been doing that, like maybe, that probably was stupid. Like, what would you tell, the senior captains these days?
The same thing I said, Drew, in the opening days of NHS this year, when I was able to talk with the students about your digital footprint, right? Let's think about that hockey player that was going to play for the Bruins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Career ruined.
Forgot about him, yeah.
Right? For what? To pick on another student?
Yep.
For what? To do something silly, I don't know, put peanut butter on a kid's forehead and make him walk around and put peanuts. I don't know.
Yeah.
For something crazy like that, why would you want to do that to create a footprint with everything today that's so out there, right? I mean, it's just, don't do it. And I took the time, again, along with the associate principal, Mike Testa, to say, people see everything.
Yeah.
And everything today is just so out there.
Yeah.
I just had a hot fudge sundae, and I got to post it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do that for? But coming back to the hazing thing, I mean, you can get in some serious trouble with that.
Yeah.
And I just say, you know what? Treat people with respect. Treat people with kindness.
Yeah.
Treat people with dignity. Last Friday, we had a gentleman named Ed Garrity. He's a motivational speaker. And one of the things, that's what he just talked with the students about. Ed's a longtime friend of mine from New Hampshire, UNH grad, and just a great person. But he drilled home the message kind of post-COVID about be kind, be nice, be respectful.
Yeah.
Take care of one another. NHS, take care of one another. Don't pick on somebody.
Yeah.
Don't find somebody that's vulnerable to do something like that. For what? What is that going to get you down the line, other than some additional problem that you don't want to face when somebody's looking up your employee, background, and they say, I don't want you here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, it goes for I mean, Newburyport's got great coaches too. The whole Cape Ann League has great coaches.
Yep.
The whole state, there's great coaches, right? I mean, almost every coach I ever had in my life, I was lucky. I was like learned something from.
Me too.
You know,
Yep.
I had very few of those. Like I remember that bad coach. Like I just like didn't have those. I always like had good coaches, which I was really spoiled by. Maybe the occasional like one didn't know what he's talking about or but like most, I was really lucky to have good coaches. But like, and I know some good coaches that have got caught up in these things, and I know they're good men or women. I know they're good parents. I know they're good people. But I also know that, you know what, that tradition from 10 years ago probably shouldn't have been going on. You probably knew about it, and you probably shouldn't have said, we'll let the kids do what they do. Like, you probably should have got involved there.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the day and age.
You really have to listen.
Yeah.
And you have to be around the locker rooms. And, you know, hazing can be hard because, hazing and bullying, because it can be really an undercurrent, you know.
Yeah.
So you got to talk to your leaders, like you talked about, getting them involved. And again, any of those old traditions, they got to go.
Yeah.
They got to go because it's not going to work out. And the last thing you want to do is, because a lot of times today, you know, get into a situation like that, you're guilty till proven innocent, right?
Right.
I mean, you're just guilty.
Well, think about even if you are proven innocent. Like so many of those, you're already dragged through the mud.
You're already dragged through it.
You know?
And you probably walk away.
Yeah.
Saying, I don't want to deal with it anymore. Right?
Yeah.
You know, of course, it's a tumultuous situation that you don't want to be in.
Yeah. Keeping it on the kind of the sports aspect of it too, because I know you're very into that. Do you guys have to? I know like officiating numbers have gone way down for high school athletics in recent years. As a guy who used to umpire Little League baseball, that was a very thankless job. I remember, and that was Little League. Never mind high school level sports. You know. And I was a good umpire too. I'll take credit for that. But yeah, it's a thankless job. I've seen same deal, right? I've seen parents who I see at the coffee shop, great people. I've known them, maybe they're fathers to or mothers to, you know, friends of mine. I've seen them all through life, good people, whatever. And then I'll just see them lose themselves at these sporting events, and it's like, why is Timmy's dad going crazy at the official? Like, obviously the official has no rooting interest in this game. Like, it's amazing to see people just go bizarre. And I wonder how, I mean, you guys must have conversations about, like, these officials are here for you. Without them, these games don't happen. Those, I'm assuming those happen?
We say to our student athletes, Drew, all the time, no chirping to the referees, right?
Yeah.
And then the communication is we read something before every single game. You know, Kyle has a script for anybody that's doing any of the announcement about expectations of how you treat people, you know. But, you know, there were words a couple of years ago, at some point, you know, in the last 10 years, about a kinder, gentler nation. Yeah. We need to be a kinder, gentler nation and respect one another.
At every level.
At every level. And I thought, Drew, that, you know, post-COVID, that's where we're going to be at. We got to continue to move in that direction. Take care of one another, because we just suffered through a really, really difficult time. Yeah. And we need to be a kinder, gentler nation.
I like ending on that note. I think that's good there. Jim Antonelli, thanks for coming on, man. This has been fun having you on for the first time. Come back again. I enjoyed our conversation here today. This is great.
Thanks very
much. Appreciate it very much. You'll see you at the front doors of the school tomorrow, I take it?
Absolutely. With a smile.
Very good. That's very good. And you're in the running for best dressed to come on this show. It's a casual nature here for me, but I love the suit combination. It's fantastic work out of you today. Jim, thank you very much. Dean of Students at Newburyport High School. Say hello if you see him in the hallways and you're dropping off the kids or any of that. So good stuff today. Thank you. Thank you to May Power. Thank you to Sarah Hayden, Ryan Rothberg, and the rest of our small but mighty team here in Newburyport. My name is Drew Moholland. This has been Live at Drew's House. Peace.